Thank you, Mr. Moore. I appreciate it. And I definitely want to thank you and your team for inviting me today to present to all of our attendees. I'm going to jump right in. We have a lot to cover, and I could probably spend a day on each and every slide, but obviously we don't have time for that right now. So I want to make sure that I manage your expectations. The agenda that we're going to cover, it's going to really give you, I think today, a better understanding of the steps you would need to take and the kind of information you need to gather in order to prepare for that conversation with a potential funder. But I think probably more importantly is I just really want you to understand that if you forget everything else I say today, that it's really about building a relationship with a bank or with a lender or an investor so they can really be your advocate and really understand your story. So the topics we're going to touch on today: first, understanding your value proposition, knowing your customer and industry. We're going to talk about your growth strategy, talking about paying the money back. That's obviously really important to lenders and investors. Building a relationship with funding partners, and then what investors and lenders will want. So, and like I said, my company, where we come in is that we get referred people who are either denied or referred to us by financial institutions who need help in preparing themselves in order to get lines of credit, prepare for investors, prepare for pitches to investors, prepare their packages to reapply for loans or credit lines. So that's something that really grew out of working with customers and really writing their business plans and doing their projections and doing their analysis in order to help them to grow their business. So my firm is a technology consulting firm, a management technology consulting firm, and as part of that, we really work with a lot of our clients to prepare them for that conversation with their funder. So all the things that we may do, the business plan, help them understand how to reach their customers, help them understand their exit strategy, their growth strategy, their projections. All those things are part of what we do in order to prepare our clients in order to get capital. So what I want you to understand today is the information I'm going to give you. It's going to be somewhat high level to really get into everything. It just takes more time. But I think that after this, you will have a better idea of the things you need to prepare. But also, you'll know that, okay, these are the kind of things I need to have in mind and prepare before I have that conversation with a lender or investor, because we need to make sure that you are prepared to convince them to be your advocate. You're going to have to meet certain qualifications, but in many cases, if you're right on the line, let's say with your credit score, or you're right on the line with maybe certain ratios, if you can convince that loan officer or that representative to be your advocate and be able to tell your story effectively and get excited about it, that's really very helpful to you being able to be successful in getting capital. Let's jump right in. So the first thing that's absolutely essential is that you need to understand your value proposition. So you may say, well, what is that? And that's really it's really what benefits you offer to customers. How is their life going to be better by working with you? And often when we ask a client or we ask a business owner, so what do you do? Or hey, what's your value proposition? Or what do you really do for your clients? And often if they're not prepared, there's this very long answer. It's like 5-6 minutes in many cases. And I'll ask you to think about it. If someone asks you what do you do and you can't give a really concise answer, or it takes you 5 or 6 minutes to answer what you do, then you may be the kind of business owner I'm talking about, where you need to really think about and be very clear and concise about what benefits you offer customers, how will you make their life better, what market need are you addressing. You have to really be able to zero in on that. Also, what differentiates your business from your competitors. So that means you need to know who your competitors are. You need to understand what value they bring to the market, but also what things they're doing well. But in addition to that, what are they not doing as well, or what can you do better? And those are that kind of research and that kind of investigation will help you to understand what really sets you apart. Also, understanding, why do your customers choose you? There must be a reason they chose you as opposed to someone else. But you need to know what that is, and that could be done, of course, from talking to past customers, through surveys, or through other engagement opportunities. Whenever you bring on a new customer, asking them how they found out about you at the source. Building a relationship with your customers so there can be an ongoing relationship as opposed to maybe just a one-time relationship. Owning that relationship with your customers, so it's not just through Facebook that they can find you. You actually have email addresses, phone numbers, and other data on that customer so that you can reach out to them whenever you want and keep that conversation going. So, but that value proposition, by taking the time to really prepare yourself, do the research, understand really what value you bring to your customers, that's going to be very, very important when you talk to a lender or you talk to an investor, because that's going to really be the first question you ask, and that they ask and that you answer, because they want to make sure that you have an understanding of these basic concepts. If you can't explain it, how are you going to explain it to your customers? So, in addition to all that, just having the real basic value proposition, or some people might even take that and build an elevator pitch out of it. I don't want you to get the idea that it should be some kind of like robotic answer. What's your value proposition? Well, we're a management consulting firm, and we do this and this and that. You should memorize that, and that should probably be on your website, and your people should be taught to those basics. But ideally, it should be a customizable value proposition, really based on your audience. So, and what I mean is, if someone says, what do you do? If they're your client, what they're concerned about is their need. What market need are you filling? So let's say if you're selling to the government, let's say in particular Department of Defense, we've had contracts with them, and the things they want to hear are not does it weigh less? The solution, this technology solution you've come up with, does it weigh less? Like in actual weight, does it use less power? Is it more efficient? Does it allow things to be done more quickly? Does it make our men and women in uniform safer? Like, those are the kind of things that the DoD usually wants to see. And then, of course, cost. But in addition to that, they would want to know, well, look, if we buy your thing and implement your thing, your solution, do we have to change all our other infrastructure and solutions? So you need to understand that client's need, understand the hot buttons, if you will, that really get them interested in what you may be able to offer. And a good lender and or investor, they're going to ask you these questions, so you need to have these things prepared. So knowing your value to clients, what's your value to partners? Usually partners, where a client wants to know is really what need can you address. Usually if you're trying to get partners to work with you, either invest their time or their money into your business or be a part or provide a significant portion of your value or of your service or product, your partners want to know really what benefits are in it for them. If I put in all this time, what do I get out of it? It might be money, it might be access, maybe some kind of partnership perks. When are they going to get their money back? Those benefits, you should be able to speak to those. And that comes from preparation and also being able to be flexible with one, understanding what you really provide as far as value, but also what is really in it for that particular audience. And for partners, it's what benefits are in it for them. Investors are normally looking for return on investment, and they want to know, okay, well, if I give you $100,000, am I going to get $500,000 back? Am I going to get $1 million back? When will I see that return? How long will it take for me to get paid back? What's the upside? That's the kind of thing that they want you to talk about to them. What's the return? How much money can we make together? Whereas lenders, when you talk to them about your value proposition and you understand how you meet the market need, they also want to know, okay, well, look, what's the risk that's involved in working with you? How are you going to repay us? And so but it all comes down to what you do and what customers you have and what value you provide. But it changes slightly based on your audience, depending who asks you, what is it that your company does? And being able to answer that question and then tweak it so that it makes sense to what that audience is really looking for. And we'll dig into this a little bit more as we go. So first thing, of course, is understanding your value proposition, but then after that, the next thing that we really work with clients on, and this usually as we write their business plans or go back and fix their business plans or enhance it a bit, it's really helping them to understand their customer and their industry. So if you're selling to the government, what agencies are you going after? Have you looked at the president's budget and where he wants to be next year? Have you seen what he wants to fund? Or, have you seen, and then take it a step further, what is Congress actually allocated money to in the budget? And then when is that money coming down the pipe? What agencies have actually received it? What offices in those agencies? And you can do research, and we help clients with that, to do the research to figure that out. But you need to know, and you need to know what agencies normally buy, what NAICS codes they normally work with. There's no point in going after an agency if you're selling professional services, but all they really usually buy are furniture and bullets. I mean, but you need to know that. You need to understand their buying patterns and their history. If you're not selling to the government, if you're selling to, let's say, the public, a lot of that information you can get that on Bureau of Labor Statistics. We use that quite often when we're writing a business plan or helping a customer prepare to go back and talk to their lender, because we need to know what percentage of someone's income they spend on whatever it is that you're buying, whatever it is that you're selling. So, and that information is readily available and it's free out on the internet, but in particular, if you go to bls.gov, you can find that there. Next, how big is the market and what is your share? So when we write a business plan, we help a customer, we're not thinking that, we're not proposing that they are going to get a 20% market share. Meaning, so if there's 100% of the market out there, what percentage will you get of customers? And really, this is so important, because this is really the number one assumption you'll make when you write your business plan and you do your projections. You need to know how big is the market, like how many millions of dollars, how many potential customers are out there. And then through your research, you can pinpoint it down. Well, look, we're trying to focus on this particular customer, but we think we can get, let's say, a 1% of the market or 2% of the market. Very, 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 very conservative. And the reason why we take that approach is, one, lenders usually like conservative projections, and two, it shows that even with just a little bit of money coming in, this is a viable business idea, and it works. Of course, if we do better than 1 or 2 or 3%, then we'll make even more money. But in turn, knowing, okay, well, if we are getting more customers, how we're going to scale, that's another question that the lender will ask you. But knowing how big the market is, knowing it's $1 million or $10 million or $100 million market, and we think that if we focus on this area, there are this many customers, we can get this percentage of the market, and that means we can get this many sales, which is this much revenue. Our expenses are here. The difference is the profit. It's all really based on that first assumption. So really important to know that, because the lender or investor is going to ask you that, and they expect you to know. And they're going to, when they break down your projections, they're going to say, okay, well, what percent of the market share that you think you're going to get this $1 million profit? And if it looks funny to them, it doesn't make any sense, or if it's not conservative, then you're going to probably have a lot of pushback. Next, you should know what your competition does well. And this is important because, one, you can do your research and see what they're doing. What are they doing well? I would recommend copying it. Whatever they're doing well, don't recreate the wheel. But then whatever they're not doing as maybe as well as you can do, or things that are maybe not providing to their customers, I would see what those things are through your research, from contacting those companies, talking to their customers, reaching out, and then seeing how you can improve. And having a competitive advantage, knowing what your advantage is, most lenders or investors are, it's going to be one of the things they're going to want to see when you talk about the growth of your company. Next, what do your sales projections say? It's funny. I had a person send me a business plan that they'd worked on last week, and everything was in the negative. I'm like, well, why is that? Well, we don't have the money to get started. I said, well, you don't write the plan like that. And I showed him how to change it, And once we said, well, look, this is where, this is the lines of revenue, and these are based on what you think you're going to be able to get. And then here are your expenses. And a red flag is when you're doing it, everything's negative, then maybe you're not making enough money, and maybe this isn't a solid business model. But normally, if by doing the research, having different lines of revenue, thinking about where you can really meet the customer's needs, and you can hopefully have 2, 3, 4, maybe even 7 lines of revenue where you're going to get money in every single month. And then, but of course, based on realistic aspirations and realistic numbers and conservative numbers, and show some kind of growth. And your expenses should not stay the same. I mean, if you can, like if you have a consistent car payment, that kind of thing, sure. But or truck payment, fine. But as far as like electricity, if you're here in Maryland or on the East Coast, our weather goes up and down, and so you probably your electricity expense may go up and down. That's usually like an easy red flag for a loan officer to say, well, so you're paying the same electricity all year round? Where's your office? Or you don't pay more to heat your place when it's cold? I mean, just simple things like that can deter. I mean, kind of deter that loan officer from working with you, but also derail your whole conversation because you're not picking up on simple things. Because just like simple things in your budget, they vary, and if you're showing your projections, they should tell that same story. Next, how is your industry trending? What's next? I mean, a few years ago, everyone was talking about coding. Well, a lot of people are going to college now or went to college and learned how to code, but now, a lot of those things are pretty standard, and artificial intelligence makes a lot of those things easy to do. And so people aren't really doing the average person isn't maybe doing as much coding. The system's able to do a lot of it and build what you need on the screen. So, but that always happens with technology. But you should know how coding may affect you, or how the administration may say, well, look, we're not going to fund these particular agencies anymore. Or you should know that, oh, wow, this technology is up and coming, and what we're selling is out of date. Or we're really in trouble if we don't have these particular additions to our team. We don't have cybersecurity. We don't have any way of protecting the data. And new laws have come in place, and now we're in trouble. You should know these things. You should pay attention, because what you don't want to happen is you go into that meeting and the investor says, well, look, tell me about, so a lot of your work is really, a lot of your clients you get through Facebook. What happens if Facebook goes away? And you're like, oh, okay. Or you're working with certain agencies, and it's like, well, I just read that President Trump is going to shut down the EPA, and that's your biggest customer. How are you? And so you should have an answer to those questions. And given some of those things may change, they may or may not be true, but you should know what other people know, at least it's common knowledge, and have an answer on how to address it. Not just for the meeting, but also just, in particular, just for running your business. You should be looking 3, 5, 10 years ahead, or have an exit strategy if you're not planning on staying in business that long, that allows you to deal with these market fluctuations. Next, your growth strategy. So obviously, when you're putting together your business plan, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in projections. And like I said, that should be based on conservative numbers, and it should be showing that you have a realistic view of your market and your share of the market that you plan to get. But ideally, those numbers are based on actual things. It's not, oh, we're going to always do 3% more this year, or 5% more, or historically we've seen this kind of growth. It should, if you have a history of growing, that's actually a good thing, and you should carry that on with your projections and show that, and that should be an important factor. But also, what's the rest of the market doing? Is it shrinking? Is it growing? What are the factors that are out there? What are your strengths, weaknesses? What kind of opportunities are out there? What kind of threats are there to your business? You need to know it. And one of the things that I always try and tell our customers is that it's not just about us writing a business plan for you that's going to get you funding. I mean, we could probably do that. It's really you understanding everything we put in this plan, so you can have a conversation with your lender or your investor. They don't want to hear it from me. They want to make sure that you understand your numbers and you know where your company is going. So this is really important. Next, how will this funding help you to grow? So what are you going to use this money for? You go to a bank and then you say, hey, look, DOD is paying me late, and we're getting in $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month or whatever, but I'm using all my personal finances to cover payroll because I can't really ever count on that check coming in at the same time every month. Well, how will the funding help you? Well, this funding will give me a cushion. This will allow me to pay everybody on time, because that's why my credit score is low, because I'm paying everybody late because I have to pay payroll. But this funding will help me to make sure to really get caught up, have a little bit of a cushion. I'll if I have to dip into it, then I'll pay it back at the end of the month, so I can keep a zero balance for the most part, only really using it when needed. That's the kind of thing a loan officer wants to hear if you're getting a line of credit. Or if you're getting a long-term debt, it's like, okay, look, I really need this $100,000 because this will cover our first 6 months of expenses. We plan to start making enough money based on our projections, conservative, that by month 5 we'll be able to start making some money and be able to start paying you back. But that's based on numbers, and that's the kind of thing that your lender wants to hear, that you have an understanding of this and what you're going to use the money for. It shouldn't be that, okay, well, this is just going to go and pay my salary. Okay, well, so we're getting a loan to pay. What about investing in the company? What about technology? What about your staff? You need to make sure you understand what you're going to use the money for and how it really will benefit your company. In addition, lenders want to know, investors want to know, well, look, how much money have you put in? How much have you reinvested? How much money have you made, and then what did you do with it? It's important that they don't see that. Well, I mean, hopefully it's actually really important that you aren't taking the money and just going on trips and things like that. It should be a good portion of, I mean, you should get paid, but a good portion of the money is going back into the business. It's going into marketing. It's going into training. It's going into hiring the right people. All those kinds of things, they need to be able to see that. Of course, you need to be able to show it. Next, you should know what needs to happen for you to grow. I mean, there are certain things that obviously we can't tell the future, but you should know, okay, well, look, for me to continue to work with the DOD, I really, it's terrible to say, but I need a Republican administration in there. We need to be going to war. We need to be going to war in places where it's hot, in deserts, and there's chemical warfare, the threat of chemical warfare, because I make filters for gas masks, or I make certain types of gas masks that can fix that. It can protect our troops. But if we're not going to war, I'm not making any sales. And obviously that's a terrible thing to maybe say, I guess, but that needs to happen for your company to grow. Also, what are your assumptions? You shouldn't have a lot of assumptions, at least, when you talk to your lender or potential lender or your investor. But there are some key assumptions, like I assume that we will have a semi-decent economy over the next 3 to 5 years. I assume that people will have a need for this particular product or service. I assume that the funding that Congress said they're going to put into this, that it's actually going to go. Obviously you can't control those things, but there have to be certain reasonable assumptions that you really base your projections on, and you have to be able to articulate that to your investor. Next, how will you pay back the money? So for a lender, they're very interested in knowing, okay, what's the vehicle you're going to use to pay this back? So having your contracts that are signed and fully executed with your customers, being able to have those and show that, being able to show your contracts with your suppliers, with your 1099 folks, with whomever, to be able to show that, okay, look, this is the money we have coming in, this is the money we have going out, I can account for it, and based on, if everything goes right, if they continue to pay me, I should have no problem paying you back, and this money you're going to give me is going to help me to really catch up, pay everything on time, and have a little bit of a cushion, so it's not so crazy every month trying to stay afloat. and you need to be able to explain that, and it needs to make logical sense. It's not about I'm going to work hard, I'm going to grind, I'm going to make it happen. Like no, that's a loan officer doesn't want to hear that. Next, do you need long-term or short-term capital? I kind of touched on that a little earlier on, but you should know. I mean, is it that you're going to every month you're going to pay it off because it's like a line of credit, and so the bank wants to see it look like kind of like a heartbeat, kind of like it goes up and it goes down, up and down, up and down as far as the balance. That's what they want to see. Whereas a long-term loan, they want to see, obviously, it's more like a declining, like a slope, where you're consistently making payments and the balance is consistently going down. But you need to know one thing, what you need the money for. You need to know it's not just, hey, I need a loan. It's, well, look, I need a loan because I need the terms to be at least at 3, 4, 5, or 10 years, or whatever, because that's how long I think it'll take me to pay back. It's not a risk for us to have it out that long because you should be able to articulate these things. Obviously, if you need help with that, please, we can totally help you with that. Next, do you need investors, partners, or lenders? It's really important to have a good, strong management team, a good, strong team of partners that can help you to deliver your products or services. Your lender wants to know that it's not just you, and if it is just you, okay, fine. But are you going to be able to generate enough money on your own? Do you have any type of disability insurance or anything to kind of back it up to make sure we still get paid? Is your business totally based on maybe one person? And if so, what happens if they leave? How will you keep going? Do you need partners to make this happen? Can your business, can you generate any money at all without getting money from investors or lenders? Obviously cash is king, and they want to see that you can actually make money, and they want to see that you have a business model that's a sustainable money-making model. If not, why would they get into it? But it's important for you to understand before you talk to them, these are the things I need, here are my gaps, here's where I'm strong, and the money that you give me will allow me to hire the right person to do this, or hire or purchase the equipment I need to really grow my company, or to redo my office, or redo my website, or whatever the case is. You have to be able to understand that, know it, and be able to articulate it to your lender or investor. Next, building a relationship with funding partners. So what often happens is that people go and apply for a loan. Usually don't do any research, and either they went with the bank where they have their business account, or maybe they saw something on TV and they're like, okay, I'm going to go and apply for a loan. Now, if you have great credit, that's a different situation. If you have great credit, you probably wouldn't be necessarily worried about how do I prepare for capital. If you have great credit, you have a good business idea, it's easier. But for folks who maybe that's not their situation, then you need to do some research to understand, okay, what banks, investors, funders are in my area, who has programs that can work for me. There are some great programs. Of course, being a part of NBDA, you have access to lenders. They do a really great job of connecting you to lending sources. If you maybe you want to go with a big bank, maybe you want to actually get investors, maybe you want to contact Tedco and see if they'll invest in your technology, or maybe you want to go with like a company like Meridian Management Group, because they specialize in folks who are minority or women business-owned companies, and they can provide loans anywhere from startup to going public or whatever. So there are a lot of different options out there, but people really just don't know about them. But all that being said, you should do the research, or reach out to someone who knows the kind of ins and outs of this. But it can be just as easy as calling a bank and saying, hey, I've got a restaurant. Do you guys give loans to restaurants? And they may say no, because we found them to be risky, and we don't normally work with restaurants. You can make that call before you open your account. You may get different answers, or even go and see them in person. You may get different answers, but usually I've found that they tell the truth, And you should work with banks that you can build a relationship with, that you can actually go to and ask for help when you need it. They should be one of your partners. And so what I mean is, so most people just go and they apply and then they get denied, and they don't ever go back and ask for feedback. Now, if you work with a larger bank, you may not be able to get any feedback. Just if you do it online, there's nobody really to talk to, whatever. You get a letter that says they denied you, whatever, because of credit or whatever the case is. But if you can work with, like if you can actually go and talk to a loan officer, go into one of these community banks, talk to investors, you can ask them, well, look, or go online and research, what industries you guys really like to work with? What excites you? What makes you passionate? Where do you see the best situation, mutually beneficial situation for your business? And it's important that you have those conversations. And they'll tell you, well, look, we don't usually work with restaurants, or hey, we don't work with your industry, but you know what? We've got some folks that do, and I'll connect you with them. But normally people go, they get denied, and then they get frustrated, and then they just try and bootstrap everything until they get to a point where it's just like they just can't do any more by themselves, and they really need the money to help them to grow. So you've got to build a relationship where you can talk to the bank and say, hey, I've been with your bank for a while, and here's, you guys obviously see how much money I have in it. I've been putting in deposits. We've got some good contracts. I'm thinking about expanding next year. So what do I need to do? And then then the loan officer will then it's a different conversation. Okay, well, he's going to say, well, look, let's pull your credit. Let's look at your ratios. Let's, I need this. I need these statements, whatever. And then it's okay, look, you are strong here. You're weak here. Over the next year, we need to get your credit score up. Over the next year, we need to see more. We need to see more money coming in and staying in your account longer. We need to see, and so there are various things that a lender or investor may want, and we'll get into, we'll touch on those things before we finish today. But that conversation is very important, and I highly recommend talking to your business banker or your funder or your potential investor long before you actually need the money. And obviously that's probably hard to do. Maybe you need it right now. But having that conversation and then putting together an action plan so that you can work on those things, it means we look at it like a checklist, but we can work on those things with them, on your own, within your team. That will help you so then when it's time a year from now and you're ready to expand, you've met everything, you put in your application, the loan officer can be your advocate because they've been working with you for a year, they're invested. Usually we see a very good result when that happens, that situation happens. But normally most people just get frustrated and they just don't go back. But you need to understand what your lender or investor wants. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in these next couple slides. I look at it like a checklist. I mean, and think about it, when they submit an application, there's a process or a person that's really just going through it and saying, okay, do they meet this? Do they meet this? Do they meet this? It's really a checklist. And if you can meet everything on the checklist, you probably are in a really good position. Then on top of that, they need to be able to, there's some intangible things that we'll talk about in a second, as far as character, like do they think that you're going to pay it back? And they look at your credit, but then when you tell your story and you talk about what kind of money you've put in and what kind of struggle you've had to grow your business and what kind of successes and those kinds of things, that's all part of what they use in order to kind of put together that narrative when they submit it to the underwriter or to the process. You should know, where are you now? What are your strengths? Okay, well, I've got good credit, but I don't have any long-term contracts. Or I've got good credit, but we've only been in business for 2 years and our revenue's kind of been staying kind of stagnant. We're not really seeing any growth. We need to make tweaks and things so we can actually make more money to be more attractive to a lender or to an investor. And like I mentioned earlier, you should make a project plan for action and future meetings with your lender or investor so that they can work with you, because they think that your idea has merit. They think that they can do a loan with you. They are normally, especially at the smaller banks and your local branches, they're normally willing to meet with you and talk to you so you can provide updates, but then also you can show your progress, and they can give you tips on things that you need to do in order to prepare for the loan. Most people don't do it, but the folks who know, they know that they should be building a relationship with their funding partner. Next, what target, you used to know what they want. And so I'm going to, over the next few slides, I'm going to go over it kind of fast, just because it's for the sake of time. But if you have any questions with these things, you'll definitely let me know. The reason I'm not going to dig in too deep, because I don't want you to think that these are like etched in stone, because these programs change every day, all the time. And so you have to, but the things I'm going to go over are the core things, the core kind of criteria that you should know about and you should be thinking about and starting to prepare. And then when you actually have that conversation with your target investor or lender, they're going to tell you the things that, yeah, we need that, but we really need X, Y, Z. And because each lender is a little different, each of them has certain things they prefer, and so but you need to understand that. But the things we're going to go over right now are the things that you will normally see with lenders and investors. So what lenders want, obviously what things they look, these are the basics. This kind of really gets started. Who is the borrower? Okay, tell me, who is this person? Tell me about this entrepreneur. What makes them so special? Next, how much is needed? How much do they need and why? Is this like where do they get that number from, right? Do they have any documentation to really back it up? Next, how are the proceeds to be used? I can tell you one of the things that gets investors and lenders I've actually seen them get angry, oh, so you want to use this money to pay yourself. You're not going to invest it into the business. You just feel like you should be paying yourself more. Deny. I mean, so, you should have a clear plan on how you're going to actually use this money, what's it for. And then, of course, how will the loan be repaid? That's super important. One, are you super risky? And two, do you have a way to pay it back? And so you need to be able to answer those basic questions. Next, here's more specifically what they usually are looking for. Financial statements and tax returns. So if you haven't filed your taxes for whatever reason, you need to start doing that. Definitely to avoid a lot of other issues with the IRS, but if you're planning at some point to go talk to a lender, especially because probably most people here are self-employed on their own companies or what have you, you need to be able to show that you have been filing your taxes and this is your income that you're reporting, and you can be able to show that how it's coming in with your bank statements and things like that. Your financial statements, your personal financial statements, your business financial statements. If you have an LLC, then maybe that's just your personal and business is kind of all tied together. If you have an S corp, it's probably different. But you should definitely talk to your accountant about that and make sure that they are able to put that together for you. There are a lot of great tools out there that you can use that are free to help manage all those debits and credits and all those transactions, pull them into one place and give you some good reporting. If you need any help with finding some of those free tools, please let me know. But they also are looking for, besides your statements and tax returns, accounts receivable, accounts payable. What's the aging look like on that? How long is it taking you to get your payments in from the government or from these institutions or from the city? What's it look like? Okay, as far as how long you taking to pay people. Are you late paying your vendors? How is that affecting your supply chain? So, all those things are important. You should be able to address that. Bank statements, obviously. Any contracts you may have, if you bought some property, whatever. If there's a property description, what's the value of it, all that. And, of course, a good solid business plan. Business plans, when we write them, are, normally, if your business is very complicated, it may be more. But normally, most business plans are 35, 40 pages, and they're persuasive. They're written in a way that it's not fudging the numbers. It's actually usually pretty conservative, but it's written in a way to get that particular audience excited about your business. And going back to what I said about audience, your business plan for your lender versus your business plan for your investor, the information as far as the statistics, that should pretty much be the same. That should be the same. But your executive summary should be different, your conclusion should be different, the way it's written to really show, like for an investor, they want to see the upside, they want to see the return on investment, they want to see when you're going to start paying them back, how much money they can make. A lender wants to see, okay, is this going to be too risky? What, do they have an understanding of how they're going to pay us back? When's that going to happen? Do they understand, if we give them $100,000 for the first 5-6 months of expenses, what's that $100,000 going to be used for? When are they going to start paying us back? Month 5, 6, whatever. You should, so your plan should be written to your audience, and having multiple versions is actually pretty important. Next, the 5 C's, and so most of the lenders we work with here, they talk about this. Some talk about it more than others, but first, character. Who are you? What's your credit score? That's a big deal, as you probably know. Next, equity. Do you have any skin in the game? What have you put in? You're asking me for $100,000, but you haven't done anything. You haven't even put any money into your business. Obviously, that's not favorable. Next, what's the business environment? So, like I touched on earlier, where's your industry going? Is it shrinking? Is it booming? What could happen that could affect it? Are you old technology? Are you new technology? Are you cutting edge? Are you so cutting edge that you're risky? All those things are very important, and you should be able to address it. Next, collateral. What do you own? If you're renting everything, maybe in some cases being totally liquid and renting things and having a lot of cash, well, you probably wouldn't need a loan, but you should be able to talk to your lender or your investor and say, look, where do you think I should be? I could buy this house or I could rent it. What's favorable? There are pros and cons of either way, but you should understand what's favorable for you in relation to that lender or investor. You can just ask if you don't know. Capacity, your ability to pay. How much money are you getting in on a monthly basis? What are your expenses and your accounts payable look like? Do you have enough money to even pay this? And understanding that is really, really, really important. Also, in addition, they want to talk about, your inventory and accounts receivable to cash. How much money do you have? How much money are you bringing in every month? What's the aging on that? What does that look like? How risky is that? Is it? We look at your statements and every month, like clockwork, you're getting those checks on the 17th, or you skip it a month and then all of a sudden you get a huge check for $50,000 like every other month. How are you covering? Are you saving your money? Are you applying it? All those kinds of things, very important. Next, collateral. What do you own? What can you sell? Your accounts receivable, obviously. Your inventory. Do you have any real estate or equipment? What are your leasing options on those? How much do you have left? Can you sell it? Is the property upside down? All those things. You should be at least thinking about that. Next, and this happens a lot. This last part, really how they're going to pay it back. What kind of guarantees are there? Because sometimes we'll work with someone and they're like right on the edge, and they're like, look, we just had one more thing that we could get this loan approved. Is there any way we can we do this as an SBA-backed loan, or is there some kind of grant that we can get, or is there some kind of can we get some kind of assurances maybe from Baltimore Business Lending or whatever the case is, kind of make it happen. So understanding that that there are some advantages with maybe going different routes to get money that work for you. It's think of it like you have a round peg and square holes. You've got to be able to fit your situation into the hole in the sense that's created by lending programs. Because like I said, it's just a checklist, and you may be better for certain programs than others, but hopefully you'll have a lender that's excited about you, excited about the opportunity to work with you, and they're going to work hard to find the right program for you and help you to get the money you need. But you should understand these are the kind of things they're looking at. So investors. Investors are, we have here 15 things on these next couple slides, And I hate to read them to you, but I just want to make sure that you understand like the way that investors are thinking. So investors are often looking for a 10 times return. They may take a chance with you for 5 times return, but you need to have a business model that's big enough to generate enough money to be able to, one, of course, cover your expenses, give you a little bit of a profit, and then what's left over goes to your investor to pay them back. And so if they put in $100,000 and they're expecting $1 million back or $500,000 back or whatever, is your business even big enough to facilitate that? I mean, are you a $1 million business, or are you more of a couple $100,000? If that's the case, an investor may not be interested in working with you, and that's okay. But you need to understand that they need to get excited about the kind of money they're going to get back. They could just keep their money in stocks, or they can keep their money in the account and just keep it safe. For them to take the risk of putting it in, investing it in your company, they need to see a dramatic return, and you need to be able to show them that. Ideally, you should have a working product, and you should be able to show that you've made some sales. Like just saying, oh, we've had some people that said they would pay, that's not enough. Cash is king, and being able to show that you actually have something that makes money is very attractive. If you're doing high tech, obviously they usually want to be innovative and disruptive, easily scalable without having to put boots on the ground. So in order for you to go into a different state, if you have to hire 100 more people, that's not something an investor really wants to see. They want to say, okay, can you run everything from one location? And these satellite offices, based on the technology you use, allows you just to really enhance what you're already creating or doing, and so you can reach more customers and have a higher profit. The money I give you should be used to grow, not just go into the pockets of your manager. So there needs to be a clear need. That as far as what you're filling, you should have a specific market. The market should be large enough to generate the kind of revenue you would need in order to attract investors. You should understand all the players and factors, kind of like what I touched on before with what the lenders are looking for. You should need to know what's going on in your industry. You should know what competitive advantage you have over your competitors and what will make it easy for you to market and succeed and dominate. You've got to really understand that. Next, they want to know, okay, well, what you're building, and this is investors, what kind of patents and licenses are available, because that's another great way to make money through intellectual property. The investment they make, like I said, it should help you to grow quickly, increase your valuation, and position you for even additional funding. You should have a strong team in place. It's not just you. And that it's, like I said, the investment isn't going just to pay your salary. And I think, if anything, I've actually seen them get usually angry about that. That you've had some success, that you raised some capital before. Those are actually usually great things. But in particular, that you had some sales success and you're actually seeing some money coming in. That shows them that you have an understanding of the market. That shows them that you have a good, solid business model, and it's something that could be a good foundation. That with their infusion of capital, you can grow. You understand how you make money, how often you're going to get paid. You understand how your industry works. If you're government, maybe you're getting paid once a month. Maybe there's a 60-day or 90-day net where you choose to wait. What kind of money do you need to kind of still run your business? You need to know that. You need to understand that. If you're in government, in particular, they want to know, okay, if we're going to invest in you, tell me about your bid no bid process. Tell me about how you choose agencies to go after, how your proposal process. There are a lot of, I'm saying a lot, there are a good number of investors that they're willing to work with government contractors because they see that there's a lot of upside if they can get with a good company. But you need to understand how the whole process works with getting in front of contracting officers or procurement agents and being able to win those contracts. Your company owns your relationship with your customers. If all of your customers are through Facebook or Instagram, and you have no way of contacting them or calling them, and you don't have really a way of emailing them, that's really, really bad, and an investor will not like that. And then finally, you have an innovative yet solid way to scale your business, and your business has the ability to scale without having to add a whole bunch of new people. And of course, that's really leveraging technology. So, like I said, this is high level. We went through it fast. But these are the kind of things at least that you should know about. So when it's time for you to go ahead and go after either a credit line or a loan or some kind of financing, or actually reach out to investors, put together your pitch, these are the kind of things you should at least be aware of. And then the hard work comes in getting prepared and getting ready for those actual meetings. So let's see if we have any questions. This is Q&A time. We have time for just a few questions. Like I said, this is my contact information, and maybe do a screenshot, and you can reach out to me. If you'd like a copy of this presentation, feel free to email me. My email is will@whcusa.com. If you Google me, Google Will Holmes. I'm easy to find. But I'll be more than happy to send you a copy of this if you like. I'm going to go